Welcome for those of you who have joining us. We have had a great outcome of registrants for this webinar. Over 200 folks have signed up, so we are just going to wait a little bit for everyone to come on in. And while we're waiting, we thought we'd just do a kind of see who's in the virtual room right now. If you could fill out the attendance poll, get an idea of who's with us. It's kind of hard to tell in this large webinar format, but it'd be great to know who is in the audience, the virtual audience, while we wait for everyone to come on in before we get started. So do that, and we thank you for coming. Wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Oh, we already have a question. The chat is disabled for me. Ben or Hugo, can we make sure that the chat and the Q&A is available for the attendees?
Yeah, so the Q&A is available, and let me figure out the chat right now.
Thank you, Peter, because we will be using the chat. All right. Oh, we can see. Hi, Tracy. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's fun. Yes, while we're waiting, if you want to put in the chat where you're from and who you are, that would be great. It's nice to get another idea of who's here. Your organization and your name is great. Let other folks know, other like-minded, who's here visiting us. Thank you. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to get going. As I mentioned, for those of you who just came in, we had over 200 folks register. And so with such a large ground of folks, we just want to make sure that we give everyone enough time to enter into the webinar, fill out the poll, and then we'll get going. Just starting. There's so many people here. Did we capture this, Hugo? In the chat? Yeah.
Yeah, so please feel free to use the chat, but if you have any question, really use the Q&A function. That's how it's going to be easier for us to make sure that we get to your question.
Agreed. Hugo, is it I don't think we see the poll. Do the attendees see the poll, or only when it's completed?
It is, and I just went ahead and close it.
So a lot more businesses this time. So lots of nonprofits, half of us, business institutions, some cities, a couple of grant writers. So that's nice to see. And I always wonder what the other is, but it's too typical. So maybe if you selected other under your attendance, maybe put it in the chat if you didn't fit in where you're from. That would be great for us to know. Lots of folks in the chat. We're almost going to get ready to start. Just going to wait one more minute, see if we get the majority of the folks who registered so everyone can hear. Let's see. All right. Well, I think we should get going. It's a little after 4. I want to make sure that we're respectful of everyone's time. So, all right. think we'll get started. We're on the first slide. All right, the team ready? All right. Hi, everybody. We're going to get started. We have had an amazing turnout to hear folks wanting to hear about our grants program. We had over 200 folks registered. And with such a large group, it's great to get a sense on who's here. The poll shows about half folks are nonprofits. We have businesses, we have grant writers, some city folks, and some waste prevention, farmers markets, food pantries. So welcome everybody to the 2023 Waste Prevention Grant Solicitation webinar. My name is Mary Saul. I'm Senior Program Manager at StopWaste, and we are going to talk about our grant solicitation webinar. A couple of housekeeping items before we get into the content. We are going to be recording this webinar, and at the end of the webinar, either later on today or tomorrow, it will be posted on our website. So if you don't catch everything, or you're not able to attend the entire webinar, or you need to share it with somebody else, the link will be on our website tomorrow at the very latest. We have, if you notice, disabled cameras and audio. That's just to keep it running smoothly with such a large group. This is an informative session, and we do want to be able to hear from you. So please, we have the question and answer button enabled, as well as the chat, and we want to be able to learn your questions. So if you have a question anytime throughout the presentation, please put it in the question and answer using the button on the bottom. We'll either queue it up to be answered at the end, or if it's something simple or easy, someone will respond to you during the presentation with your answer. So rest assured, anything that you have question-wise will be responded to. And then use the chat if you're having any technical difficulties, and we'll also be referring to the chat throughout the presentation for links that we're talking about or referencing in the PowerPoint. And so with that, I think we are ready to go to the next slide. Thank you. So quickly, I wanted to introduce my grant team colleagues today. Everyone here has been working hard on the presentation and putting together a great application process for this fiscal year's webinar and application. So here we have Justin Lair from StopWaste, who does our reusable transport packaging, and Elisa Belize, who's also working on food waste prevention, Casey Bartholomew with food waste prevention, Michelle Fay for reusable transport packaging, and her colleague Janine Sidran also with reusable transport packaging, and Ben Duggan, who would be reusable foodware. So this is our team, and you hear through everyone today. Did I miss anyone? And Hugo, I did miss Hugo, who will be helping put all of us together for all sorts of things around the grant application process. So welcome to everybody, and thank you for helping out with this StopWaste Dream Team. So this is our second time doing a webinar, and the first time we did it, we had over 100 folks attend. So clearly this is a helpful information session for folks to learn more about the StopWaste application process, what we're looking for in regards to content and proposals, and how an entity can apply for and receive funding. So what we're looking for in regards to project types and applications, as well as an opportunity for applicants to ask questions. This slide here is what we're going to be covering today in the webinar. I'm not going to read each bullet point, but just to get a sense for folks in the virtual room, what we'll be covering today, and especially near the end, talking about tips for strong application, and plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So this year we have $1.1 million in funding to distribute to businesses, nonprofits, and institutions. And in some case, we also have funding for school districts. And these are for projects and services that focus on reuse, repair, and redistribution of goods, including food. The goals of this program are to jumpstart an idea, advance concepts related to source reduction and reuse measures, as well as improve and expand our reuse, repair, and redistribution infrastructure and services in Alameda County. Just to note that funding is available for upstream projects only. Recycling and composting-based projects are not eligible for this funding source. So we do have 6 categories and how the funds are distributed. This is a table of how our funds will be distributed this fiscal year. We do have a new focus or grant category, our community food systems, which is our 6th category. And you'll hear more about all of these categories in a bit to give you an idea of what the contents are and what folks are looking for and which projects would fit well within each category. On the right-hand side, this is how the breakdown is for 2023 funding distribution. As I mentioned, 1.1 million. And just to show that last year, we provided 55 grantees with about $870,000 in funding. So we're recognizing the demand and need for our grants, and we're able to put more money in this budget to provide more grants to worthy applicants. Next slide. So now we're going to go into the different categories that we have available. You'll hear from each of the grant category staff person and managers explaining what they're looking for and what's eligible and the focus of the grant category. And it should give folks an idea of where a project may fit, or maybe it'll give folks an idea of a project that they hadn't thought about but realized, oh, there's a grant category for that. So I'm going to review the reuse and repair grants, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues for each of theirs. Just a reminder, you can only select one grant category, and you can only submit one grant application. So you can submit a grant application to each grant category. So an entity can only submit one. So it's very important that you understand where your best application project would be. So this is for the reuse and repair grant. $275,000 is available for this year's. And the goal of this grant focus area is to minimize the need for disposal or recycling, and instead foster waste reduction to stimulate economic activity in the reuse and recovery sectors. We're really looking for projects that involve reuse and repair infrastructure and services, as well as to help maintain and expand existing ones. A project that would supply or apply for this grant focus area must support reuse, repair, recovery, and or redistribution activities. In this case, not food waste related. You'll hear about opportunities for food waste recovery and redistribution in a little bit. As I mentioned, recycling and composting based projects are not eligible. And when I say recycling, if you're recycling a waste material into a new material or a product or composting it, that wouldn't qualify. There's a maximum of $20,000. We don't always provide the maximum amount of funding, but that is the allotment for this particular focus area. And just to give an example of some of the projects that we have funded in this category, here's a picture you can see on the left of someone repairing a computer. That's an organization called Oakland Tech Exchange, and there's a picture of a Civicor intern who was learning skills at a tech exchange to repair and refurbish a computer. And those computers are then redistributed to Oakland families and students in need. So that's an example of a repair grant. And then on the right, there's these boxes. I know it might be hard to see, from an organization called Love Twice that collects and redistributes baby clothes to mothers in need. It's a box full of clothes and necessities for first year of life of a baby, and they're distributed to social workers who redistribute them via hospitals to mothers in need. So that's just 2 examples of some grants that we have funded in this category in the past. We have a whole list of grants that we have funded by category on our website under recently funded grantees, and we'll hit that in a little bit. But just to let folks know, and maybe Janine can put that in the chat, that there's a list of previous grantees if you wanted to get more ideas of the types of grants we're looking for per category. So with that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Justin, who's going to talk a little bit about our reusable foodware.
Thank you, Mary. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Justin Lehrer. I lead our reusable foodware project, and I'll be speaking about our next focus area, which is for reusable foodware. Simply put, these grants provide funding for projects that replace single-use disposable foodware with reusable systems. Single-use foodware items are often made from plastic or compostable plastic or fiber, but they're all very prevalent in our daily lives. They all result in significant impacts to human health and the environment. So StopWaste is interested in investing in reusable foodware as a solution. We aim to develop more local infrastructure and overall capacity for reusables in Alameda County so that these services are more accessible and convenient to both businesses and consumers. And so that's a step that is really critical to building momentum in this space in our county. So a couple of examples of the types of projects that we fund. All the projects in this category must support replacing single-use or disposable foodware that's generated in Alameda County with a reusable foodware solution. So for example, it could be implementing reusable foodware for dine-in or for takeout at businesses or restaurants or institutional dining settings. There could be reusable foodware solutions at public events or venues, large gatherings. There could be projects expanding dishwashing or foodware rental services, reusables for meal delivery apps and services. So these are all examples of the types of projects that would qualify in this category. One example is pictured on this slide. This grant went to DishJoy, which is a reusable foodware washing and distribution service, and the Center for Environmental Health in Oakland for a project replacing disposable lunch trays and utensils with reusable alternatives that are made from stainless steel. You can see them pictured here. And this is happening at several schools in the Alameda Unified School District, including Bay Farm School, which is pictured here. The project is still ramping up with plans to extend to 2 additional elementary schools in the city of Alameda. And since I'm using a school as an example, I'll just kind of qualify that for applying for these grants, school districts are not eligible for all of our categories. In this category, we can work with schools. We typically do that by working with multiple partners. So in this case, Center for Environmental Health partnered with DishJoy and Alameda Unified to propose this project. So a few other notes before I wrap up on this category. This category of grants is available to businesses, nonprofits, and institutional settings. The projects must be located in and or serve the residents or businesses of Alameda County. We're looking for projects that scale in this category. So smaller projects such as a single restaurant funding a smaller purchase may be better suited for other support that we can offer. We have a technical assistance team, and we also have financial incentives available there that wouldn't require a full grant application. So if you're thinking of a project for on a smaller scale, reach out to us and we can talk and provide some guidance on that. But if the project is a larger setting or can scale to a larger setting, that may be appropriate for a grant application. In any case, I encourage you to reach out to us, share your concept or idea. We can provide some initial feedback. And that's it for this category. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Casey Bartholomew. I am a program manager at StopWaste, and I lead our food waste reduction initiatives. I am going to share an overview of 3 grant categories. These are 3 categories focused on food waste prevention, food donation equipment, and community food system projects. Before I give an overview of each, I did want to mention that for these 3 categories, we will not be considering any funding requests to purchase vehicles such as box trucks, vans, or any type of transport vehicle. So I did want to just note that, and that's also noted in the application packet as well. Our food waste prevention and recovery grants fund projects that incorporate food waste prevention or the recovery and redistribution of surplus edible food through donation. We have up to $20,000 in funding available per application for both nonprofits and businesses, and we are also including school districts in this category as an eligible applicant. The goal for food waste prevention projects is to prevent surplus edible food from being generated in the first place through prevention activities. And these activities range from purchasing software or services that help manage food inventory to minimize loss through tracking and proper ordering, purchasing new or upgraded equipment to reduce wasted food, secondary resale projects that divert surplus food that would otherwise go to waste through other retail channels, apps, or tools that essentially connect customers to discounted food. And in this particular area, we're very interested in seeking opportunities to connect communities to this surplus that lack access to affordable food sources. Other eligible activities include technology that extends the shelf life of pre- and post-consumer food, and upcycling food byproducts generated during the food manufacturing process that would otherwise go to waste. So in addition to the prevention activities, this grant category also supports projects that recover edible surplus food through donation to address food insecurity. Funding can support activities such as purchasing equipment needed to recover, store, or redistribute surplus edible food, support staff time or volunteer time, testing new innovative approaches to food donation or distribution that minimize food loss, such as moving to a client choice food distribution model, developing new donation partnerships, especially with some of the large food generators in our county, like grocery stores and healthcare facilities, prepared food coming from large restaurants. And in this picture here, you can see one of our current grantees, Common Vision. They received a food recovery grant to develop a donation partnership with Good Eggs, distributing high quality surplus food at community sites. In this picture, you can see Hoover Elementary in Oakland, and they're also distributing food through other distribution hubs. So our surplus food donation equipment grants help build the capacity of nonprofit food recovery organizations and services to essentially increase the safe recovery and distribution of edible surplus food generated by businesses in Alameda County. These grants are available for up to $10,000 per award and available to nonprofits such as food pantries, food banks, community or faith-based organizations, and food recovery services. The grant funds can be used to purchase equipment such as cold storage, like refrigerators and freezers, shelving or other storage equipment, pallet jacks to move large donations, and food preparation or serving equipment to distribute or serve food. We are also very interested in supporting equipment grants that focus on increasing the recovery of prepared or cooked foods. And this picture shows our SOLA Distribution Center and Community Services. They received grant funding to purchase a double-door commercial refrigerator that enabled them to accept more perishable food donations such as milk, dairy, meat, and prepared foods. Our last grant category for our food focus grants that is new this funding cycle, as Mary mentioned, the Community Food System Grant supports businesses and nonprofits with up to $10,000 in funding to implement place-based practices that provide long-term strategies to improve food access, address equitable approaches to that work, build economic opportunities, and community health. Some eligible projects or activities included in this focus area include local food production paired with food recovery, local sourcing or procurement of food, food recovery or gleaning activities, upcycling of surplus food, and community education to help individuals and families reduce wasted food at home. We are looking for projects that are rooted in the communities that they aim to serve. And we are also very interested in projects that highlight community partnerships and longer-term strategies that prevent wasted food and enhance the local food system. These two pictures show one of our pilot grantees, Crosswinds Goodness Village in Livermore. And Goodness Village is utilizing their grant funding to support strategies to improve food access and address access to housing by providing secure permanent housing on site. Their Feeding Goodness project also includes a plan for food recovery to offset the costs of providing food to community residents. And they're using their grant to purchase equipment for the community center to enable safe food storage and food preparation, as you can see in this picture with the blender, where they're taking produce and making smoothies for residents and preserving recovered food. So now I will hand it off to Michelle to talk about our reusable transport packaging grants.
All right, thanks, Casey. So I'm Michelle Fay, and I lead our reusable transport packaging project. And this brings us to our last grant category for this year. So transport packaging is what's used to ship ingredients, parts, and products within a facility or through a supply chain. So common examples include cardboard boxes, pallets, and plastic stretch film used to secure loads onto pallets. Most of this transport packaging is used just one time before it's recycled or landfilled. Fortunately, this single-use transport packaging can be replaced with reusable alternatives in many cases. So on the screen in these 4 photos, you can see the primary types of reusable transport packaging that we fund through this grant. In the upper left photo, you can see green handheld reusable plastic totes that replaced cardboard boxes from a local CSA farm box deliveries. The next photo, top right, shows rolling bins that were purchased by our grantee Surplus Service to transport electronics in their warehouse instead of having to use large cardboard boxes or gaylords on pallets. The rolling carts are much easier to use, they reduce waste, and they save money over time. The bottom photo on bottom left highlights reusable pallet wraps, which are being used by a local produce distributor to secure their pallet loads. And this particular reusable transport packaging item has been very popular in the program. And the nice thing about these is employees often report that it's much easier on their backs to be able to use these reusables instead of wrapping pallets the traditional way with several rounds of plastic wrap. The last photo on the right, you can see reusable pallets, which were purchased recently by our grantee Phil's Coffee for transporting coffee beans between their warehouse in San Leandro to their roasting plant in Oakland. And as you can see with the photo, not only do they get to save money with these recurring pallet purchases, but the reusables nest together nicely, saving space and making it easier for transportation. So this funding category covers the upfront costs to help sites make that initial equipment purchase to switch to reusables. Typically, what makes a good candidate for reusables are sites that purchase their own transport packaging and distribute or move materials or goods in that packaging within a fairly small geographic footprint and with fairly high frequency. Applicants in this category can be located outside of Alameda County as long as the packaging material that will be eliminated ends up in our county. So for example, the farm box totes on the top left come from a farm in the Central Valley, but the disposable boxes were coming to Alameda County residents where they were then being disposed. So we were able to fund reusables to reduce waste to landfill in Alameda County. If you think you might have an opportunity to switch to reusable transport packaging and are considering applying for a grant, we'd love to connect with you a little bit more ahead of time. We can help kind of identify specific vendors that are available, run through the costs and future savings potential, and also just help through any logistics you may have for your site to make that switch. This category has $50,000 budgeted, and we offer up to $10,000 per project. And Mary, I think I pass it to you.
Thanks, Michelle. So hopefully with those 6 descriptions of our different categories for funding available, you have maybe a better idea of where either project that you had in mind would fit in, or perhaps it gave you an idea of a project that you're interested in. The next couple of slides, I'm just going to go over some of the processes around either applying for a grant or eligibility to give some more details in regards to what you might need to do to apply for. So as we mentioned, if you're a business, a nonprofit, a school district, an institution, you need to either be based in Alameda County with a project that fits in one of the grant categories, or as Michelle was explaining, divert materials for reuse in Alameda County. So if you're not based in Alameda County, maybe you're based in Richmond or the Central Valley, but you have a project that could divert in Alameda County, you would be eligible. You need to be a 501c or a business license. So any 501c is eligible for funding. And if you have a current grant, if you're a current grantee, please contact your grant manager to ensure that you're eligible to apply, that you're still in good standing. And if you plan on using a fiscal sponsor, please reach out to your grant contact. We have very specific rules around what we consider an eligible fiscal sponsor. And it's important that you reach out early to ensure that your fiscal sponsor meets our requirements. You can see here on the right, the different grant categories and the type of entities that can apply. Each grant category has a slightly different eligibility requirement. And so this is just a snapshot. Again, all of this is on our website and we will go over that in just a little bit. But just wanted to give folks some information on some basic eligibility. Next slide. So a little bit about how we evaluate and grant application once it comes in. Here are the 6 bullets, and we have a lot more information to support those bullets and the evaluation criteria that staff uses when they're reviewing a grant application. I'm not going to read through the bullets, but you'll see all of the information about the criteria and eligibility is in our information and conditions packet. Maybe Janine could put the link there for those who'd like to take a quick look at it. And there's a lot more details and supporting information about what we're looking for in regards to each criteria. The proposals are reviewed and evaluated on a competitive basis within each category by StopWaste staff members. We do give priority for new applicants who have a strong proposal. As part of that review, at times we'll follow up with a Zoom call or a site tour, some emails or a phone call. We like to learn as much about both the applicant and the proposal as possible so that we can make an informed decision in regards to how and when we award. Next slide. Just a little bit of information about the schedule. Applications are due March 3rd, 11:59 at the very latest. The system shuts down at 11:59. So please don't wait until the last minute. If there's one tip I can give everybody is start the application early and submit early and contact StopWaste. If you're in the process of submitting an application through our new application portal at 11:59, it will not be accepted. So please don't wait. Get your applications in early. We strive to make our award decisions by May 18th, and then we complete the award contracts by June 15th for those who have been selected for an award. Some application tips. I mean, there's so many, and I think we cannot say it enough, but you really should reach out to StopWaste staff if you have an application idea and that you'd like to learn more about the proposal and maybe some supporting information that we can provide an applicant. StopWaste.org/grants is where all the information lives, and I encourage you to go visit that as soon as you can, and maybe Janine can put that in the chat. We're going to go over the website in just a little bit. Review that information packet. Also review your previously funded grantees. It gives you a great idea of what we're looking for and what we have funded in the past. We have FAQs. A lot of the questions that you might be thinking about may have already been answered. Think about partnering if possible with other entities. Oh, and did I say reach out to staff and submit early? So, or next slide. There are many different ways to contact staff. We have office hours every Friday during the solicitation that you can make an appointment. Here's just a snippet from our website. If you're unable to make it on a Friday, just reach out, email staff and see if they can find another time for you. We really would like to speak to it as many as possible. And I already talked about fiscal agent and current grants. So I think next slide, please. For those of you who are selected for award, a couple of things you should know if you haven't been a previous grantee is that we do enter into a funding agreement, which is like a contract, and you will need insurance. And we'll talk about that in a bit when we go through our website. And that you cannot spend any funds until you have an agreement in place. Sometimes it takes up to 6 weeks to get and execute a funding agreement. And deliverables are tied to payment. So if you're awarded a $20,000 grant, with the exception of our equipment grants, you will not just get a $20,000 grant, a $20,000 check to implement it. We create a scope of services, there's reporting, there's invoicing, and then there's also sometimes site tours. So it's important to know that there's usually 2 payments per grant contract that's awarded. And equipment grants, as I mentioned, have a much more streamlined award process, and they don't require insurance. So if you're looking to buy a piece of equipment under the equipment grants that Casey and Michelle were talking about, that's a little bit different process and more streamlined. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there's always more requests than funding available. And so I just wanted to share with those who are on the call that there are some additional funding sources for projects that are related around waste prevention. One is the Altamont Educational Advisory Board, and maybe Janine can put their link in the chat. They have funding available for waste prevention, recycling, composting, for organizations and individuals based in Alameda County and San Ramon. Their deadline is also March 3rd. Their grant round just opened, and I encourage folks to take a look at their funding opportunities. They have a much more streamlined application and not quite as much funding, but they certainly have opportunities for everyone. And then we have an ongoing list of externally funded opportunities on our website. Maybe Janine can put that link in the chat as well. It's all over all different types of organizations, but maybe folks didn't know that Cliff Bar has an ongoing environmental grant opportunity, Home Depot. So we've been trying to track different opportunities for folks who may be able to apply for funding in multiple sources. So just something that we're trying to promote and offer to the attendees or anyone that's interested in this arena. And with that, I think we're going to turn it over to my colleague, Ben, who's going to run us through our grants website landing page so folks can get an idea of where the applications live, how to run through it, and all the good, important information that we've been sharing will be a little bit more live for you now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ben.
All right, thanks, Mary. My name is Ben Duggan, and I work on the Reusable Foodware project. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to show you where to find information that's going to help you apply for a StopWaste grant. Here we are on the StopWaste grants homepage. And as you can see here, the first step, you can only submit 1 grant application, and there's 6 grant categories. So the first step is figuring out which one you're going to choose. If you click on these grant categories, you'll find more information, including StopWaste goals for each categories. The best grant projects tend to be the ones where the applicant's goals align with StopWaste's. So it's a good idea to make sure that you're a good fit. The next place where you can find some helpful information is on the StopWaste application support page. Here, you'll see there's 4 steps that are outlined, including some background reading. There's the grant information packet that Mary talked about earlier. You can go ahead and download this. It's a PDF, and it goes over the whole process, the whole grant application process. Plus, later on, when you're filling out your grant application, you're going to have to check a box saying you read it. So you might as well go ahead and read that document. 2 areas that are covered on the website and are in that PDF are the grant applicant eligibility criteria, which goes into the fine print about what kind of projects and who's eligible for grants. And another one is the grant evaluation criteria. This is the criteria that StopWaste staff will use to evaluate and review proposals. And it tells you what we're looking for in a strong proposal. And I highly recommend reading this and referring to it while you prepare your proposal. You know, we always get more applications than we can fund, and reviewing this information is going to help you submit a strong proposal. All right.
Just to jump in there really quick, you'll see on the right, there's a grant FAQ that has all the questions. And then just if you scroll down really quick, Ben, the graphs down, contacts and appointments and previously funded grants are all under this StopWaste grant application support. So it's a good place to look for what you're looking for.
That's right. Yeah, if the grant FAQ, Mary mentioned that earlier. these are actual questions that previous applicants have asked us. So there's a lot of good information there. And after reviewing that, if you still have questions, you can always email us at stopwastegrants@stopwaste.org. Or when you scroll down, you can see the grant categories, who can apply, staff contacts, and then you can even schedule an appointment here. Pick a time and just fill out this form and make an appointment, a 30-minute appointment with StopWaste staff. All right. And I think that's about it. The next step is to begin your grant application. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Hugo.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So I'm going to share my screen real quick right here. So once you're ready and then you know which grant category you're going to apply to, we're very excited to share with you now this new application portal that we have. So this is the main page of the StopWaste application platform. So once you arrive here, it's apply.stopwaste.org. And once you're here, the main thing, what is very important is you're going to notice that there's a cookies, big notification to the top. So it's very important for you to press accept only necessary cookies, just to make sure that your application goes smoothly. And this notification will just pop up. So it's very important to just press on this. So I'm going to press it. And then once you're in, you will need to create an account. So once you create your account, this is how you're going to be able to access the application so that you can keep working on it in a later date. So you're going to fill in the register, and then it is a password of 12 characters. So make sure to write it down on the side, or once you enter it for the first time, press the remember me so that you're going to have no problem, making sure to re-access your account. And if by any, problem, you actually forget your password and you need to re-access your account, you can press on forgot password. It's going to send you an email, and then you can easily re-access it. So I'm going to connect right now as an applicant. And this is the main dashboard. So up there, you're going to have all the dates, all the timeline. And as I'm scrolling down right now, you're going to see that this is your dashboard to start your StopWaste grant cycle 2023. So what you're going to do is you're going to press on start application. And this is when you're going to start your application. So it is very important, again, to only select one grant category, to only apply for one. So once you're ready, you can select one, and then you're going to see that there's a paragraph where it's going to lead you back to the website if you needed more information. And it does tell you also who's the main point of contact for each of these grant categories. So for this purpose of this webinar, I'm going to do reviews and repair. And it's going to be application test. So this is where you should write the name of your application. So, and then press save and next. Awesome. So something that is very important for this platform is that we really want to make sure that you are not, going really deep into your application and then you're actually not eligible. So we have this eligibility tab that will not let you go further if you haven't if you haven't passed the eligibility threshold. So I'm going to show an example of if I went over to the tab 2B, for example. I'm going to scroll down, but you're going to see I'm not able to enter anything just because I haven't checked my eligibility. So as an applicant, go to the 2.8 eligibility and make sure to answer these 5 questions to make sure that you are eligible. And as I'm going down this, Mary, feel free to jump in if you have anything you want to say on.
One of the reasons we've done that is that we just want to make sure, as Hugo said, that you're submitting an application that's eligible, that you haven't spent a lot of time, and this helps us and an applicant kind of do a cursory preview about eligibility. And so it's just basically reinforcing some of our eligibility requirements. And it really is just to kind of ensure no one's wasting their precious time.
There it is. So now I've filled in my eligibility. It was really quick, and then I'm ready to press check eligibility. And then you're going to get a message that's going to congratulate you that you are eligible. So once you do this, then you are ready to fill in your application. And it depends on which grant category you apply to, but the larger grants do have an insurance requirement. So Mary, I'll let you jump in also on this one for the 2.B insurance.
Right. So we are required, if you're to be awarded a grant, that you have insurance unless it's equipment grant. And so we just want to make sure that people understand that. So if you have insurance, please upload the insurance. If you do not maintain insurance, then just we want an estimate or a quote that you understand that if we were to be awarded a grant, I understand I would need to obtain insurance and this is how much it would cost. You can also include the cost of an insurance if you don't currently maintain it as part of your application budget. But it is a requirement, and after many times we've learned for applicants that they didn't understand that and they were awarded a grant and then they had to go get insurance. And so we're trying to just ensure that folks understand the rules early on. So upload your information. And if you have any questions about insurance, of course, you can reach out to staff, but that's kind of the insurance tab.
Thank you. And then we decided to put this tab straight in the beginning of the application so that you know like the type of insurance that your grant category will require, so that you can ask for these documents as you keep working on your application. So know that because this is it is a web-based application form, that you can leave the application and then come back to it, and there's going to be no problem. It saves every 5 seconds. It's very fast. So it's going to be easy to come back to where you left off. And so now we are at tab number 3. This is what we use to ask as well. This is really all the regular information that was asked in the past. And if there's any documentation that needs to be uploaded. So for example, I have picked that I was a business for this one. So the application is asking to have actually a nonprofit, so a 501c documentation. So it will only allow you to upload a Word, a PDF, or an Excel for all the different upload boxes that you're going to encounter. So I'm going to scroll down. And one thing that was already addressed through the question, but if you have been awarded a StopWaste grant in the past, or you are a current grantee, it is important to ask your current grant manager if you're all good to go for applying for this grant cycle. So into the application, you will be able to say, if I do have a current grant open with StopWaste, then did you contact your grant manager? So I'll just say yes.
So a lot of these questions that Hugo is going to go through are logic based, and you need to answer them all. And you'll see at the end, if you've missed one, you won't be able to submit. So it might seem like a lot, but most of them are yes, no's. And the real content of what we're going to be reviewing mostly is in the next tab that Hugo is going to show about the questions in tab 4.
Thank you, Mary. Exactly. We are in tab 4. So this tab is really the bulk of your application, and each grant category have different application, like different questions for this piece. So I won't be going over in detail of what the questions are, but I will let you know that every application have a word count of 300 maximum. So we really don't want you to take too much time on these applications also. So we've made sure that please, that it's a 300 word maximum, and you don't need to reach
Right.
the 300.
So quality over quantity, concise responses to the questions is really what we're looking for. Just because there's 300 word max, you don't have to fill a max in. If you can explain what you're looking for in shorter, that's fine too.
Thank you, exactly. And then to the top of the page, we really want to make it easy for you to be able to review the criteria that your application will be reviewed on. So you can click on this and it's going to bring you to the page with the criteria. And I'm going to scroll down, and to the right, there's all these int box also that will give you more context into what each question are asking for. And then the tables also have a way to add additional rows. And we've worked on not adding too many of these tables, since if I'm going here right now, we try to add these tables with with some information that needed longer text, and know that the text will wrap in. I'm just trying anything, but know that on our end, it's easier to review, but we really didn't want to put you all through this. So most of the application, we're not gonna run through this. And then going down the application, there it is for one. Then there it is. I think this is a good moment to let you all know that since this is, let me go back to the top of the page, but we have been advised to let you know that although this is a portal, a web-based application, that you could be sharing your password with someone from your organizations to help you fill the application. It is really not advised, because if there's two person connected on the same account at the same time writing in answers, the answers will overwrite. So we really don't want to lose any progress like this. So we do recommend that if you are looking into collaborating with someone to fill some of these questions, that you can press on this icon right here. And there is a way for you to access. So I'm going to application test. On the start here button, there is a way to download a blank application as a PDF that you can share with someone. This is not how you can apply, but it's just a good way to share these questions in. And what you can do is you can work on the same, the same room, the same computer, or you can share your screen, and then make sure that there's always only one person connected at a time. And we have been told that the platform that we're using in the future will allow for that cross collaboration, but for this grant cycle, let's totally not risk this one. So there it is. So tab number 4, then Mary, I'll let you also go over the tab number 5, which is about the proposal budget.
Yeah, so you can see here on the right-hand side, there's a download template here. It is an Excel spreadsheet, or it's also available in Google Sheets. And it's a template that we're asking everyone to download and put their budget in this particular format. And then you'll just save it and upload it right there in the application portal. That is not the budget. So one thing to know about what you can and cannot use funding for, and it comes up, and there's probably a question in there right now, but for staff funding, so if you have a salary that you would like to pay, the funding from this grant would only cover 50% of a staff person, and that's not including consultants. And we do that because sometimes a grant will award funds for an entire staff person, and then next year they're not awarded a grant from us or from another entity, and then they don't have enough funds, and that staff person then goes away and the project isn't able to move forward. So this is just an example of the template that we ask folks to use. It's fairly straightforward. Again, ask your grant manager if you have any questions, but we're looking for what other funding do you have, what's the project going to cost, and some information about equipment should you ask for equipment funding. So take a look at that budget template. And then we just ask you to upload it there. We do ask for some financials. We ask for 2 years of financials, profit and loss, and balance sheets, because we'd like to understand where the financial status is for an organization. And it gives us an idea of the stability. If you don't have that information, or you only have 1 year, or you have it in different format, we just ask that you upload what you have. And if you don't have anything, you need to explain. So again, the system won't let you move forward unless you submit something. And please submit a rationale if you aren't able to provide the financials that we're asking for. And then lastly, here's where the rubber meets the road. You'll need to show that you read that grant information and conditions packet, that you read the grant funding agreement overview should you be awarded funding, and also as well as the funding agreement. These are all check boxes with the links that are available for the documents that we're asking you to read. You'll understand that there's no contest. So if you're not awarded funding, there's no appeals to the board or to staff. And then who's submitting the application. And once that's done, I think Hugo's going to show an example of if you've missed a question and you hit the submit application proposal, it will not let you move forward, and it will highlight the question that you have not completed, which is a nice feature because we have had folks submit incomplete applications in the past and then not be able to be eligible for review.
Awesome, perfect. So you are ready to submit your application. And one detail that we want to really emphasize is that once you submit your application, you can still return to it and make changes. We will start reviewing the application once the grant cycle is closed on March 3rd, and then we're gonna review the most up-to-date. So once you press submit proposal, it doesn't mean that you don't have any control over changing what your proposal is. So I'm going to press this and I haven't filled anything. So, oh, there is something, there is red. So there's something that I haven't filled. So you're going to get a big red message if there's some pieces of the application that haven't been filled in. So for example, in my proposal detail, I am noticing that, oh, I haven't provided details right here. So enter text, do not just enter text, but you be filling in the information, and then I'm good there, I think, and then I would go into final submittal. I haven't read the documents or really made sure that I look at this in detail, so I would be accessing these, and then when I'm comfortable, I would just press this, and then I think I'm good. So I will press submittal again, just show that you see what it looks like. And then no, there's actually something else. So I'm going down. Oh yeah, right there. So
Okay, we're not gonna complete all those,
no, we're not. So there it is. So what's awesome though is that you don't need to go to the last tab to be able to submit. Once you're good, you can press at the bottom, and then there it is. So this is when you're going to receive this confirmation. You are going to receive also an email, a copy of, just confirming to you that your application has been submitted, and there is a space to fill out a survey. So we really want to hear from you on how did you like going through this new web-based application instead of having anything into like PDFs and all of this. So please take the time to fill this survey, as it's super valuable for us to improve on this process.
Thank you, Hugo. And on that, one of the reasons we made this large switch, and this was quite the undertaking by the team to move to a web-based portal, is that last year we had several applicants who had trouble combining PDFs or completing the application or missing information, which made them disqualified. And we really felt that it was time to move over to the web-based portal. So again, give yourself some extra time to become familiar with it if you've applied to grants with us before. I think with that, we are ready to answer some of the questions and answers that have come in throughout the presentation. And I'm going to look to Annalisa to kind of cue us up and point the best person to perhaps respond to some questions that came in.
Okay, so I think we've had a record number of questions coming in, and we've been furiously typing away to answer.
I guess that's a note to let you know, Annalisa, if we're not able to answer them all, for sure we'll either respond to the person who posted them and they'll be on our FAQs. So if we don't get to your question, we will, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, and for folks for the recording, because if you're reviewing the recording, you won't be able to see the live questions that popped up. Look out for the FAQ document that will accompany this recording so you can read those questions. But to bring up a couple questions, and we also did get some questions from registrations. I know we've gone over this, but just to reiterate, if a grant applicant received a grant in 2022 for the last grant cycle, are they still eligible to apply for another grant this year, and perhaps for a different program area?
Oh,
Do you want to answer that, Mary?
so if they're a current grantee, but they want to apply for a different grant focus area, I would just ask that you reach out to your current grant manager. And if you're in good standing, for sure, you could apply with a different grant focus area. That's the question, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we did have a question come in about projects that have to do with upcycling garments. Mary, do you want to tackle that one on whether it's whether it falls into the category for
Yes, for
reuse and repair?
textiles. So if you're upcycling for reuse, not recycling, but if you're taking a garment that maybe was damaged and you're repairing it and then redistributing either for sale or for redistribution to those in need, that would be considered a reuse or repair application eligible.
Great. And then we have a question that perhaps Ben or Justin could address. Could this money be used to install dishwashers in our schools?
Sure, I'll take that one. Thanks, Annalisa. For the reusable foodware focus area, it is an eligible use of the funding to use it for equipment. So that could include reusable dishes, cutlery, services that to clean those materials, or a dishwasher on site. So yes, long way of saying yes.
Great, thanks, Justin. We have, this question came up several times in the Q&A, but maybe Mary, if you want to address this one, it's broad. So for those who are applying, there's been several different questions about folks who are doing a program that's ongoing and whether their proposal has to be a new program to receive funding.
Well, for the reuse and repair, if it's continuation or expansion, then they would be eligible. So no, for reuse and repair, it doesn't have to be something new. And I think perhaps for all of our focus areas, and someone jump in if that's not correct for theirs, but we're really trying to either maintain or expand our upstream infrastructure. So if you're doing good work and you need funds to continue to do that, at least for the reuse and repair, you would be eligible. I guess maybe jump in there if your answer is different.
I'll jump in just for the reusable foodware category. It's a little bit different because we framed these as pilot projects. We're trying to seed new growth in this area in Alameda County and build up new infrastructure that generally doesn't exist that much yet. So so there's a little bit of nuance involved. Like we are looking for new projects. We are open to existing projects, especially if they are expanding. So if you started previously and now have an opportunity to increase the scope or expand the reach of the project, we are definitely interested in that.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. We had another question come in about 501c6s and whether they're eligible to apply for our grants.
If you take a look at the website, it says who's eligible. If a nonprofit is eligible to apply for that grant category, any 501c is eligible to apply.
We had another question about insurance. So whether it's necessary to have insurance at the time of submitting the application or whether they can be in the process of obtaining the insurance.
You don't need to have insurance to apply, but we would like you to show that you received an estimate for what the insurance would cost. So we don't want anyone to incur any expense before being awarded. So what you would need to apply is show us your estimate. That's what we would need. And that just a reminder that equipment grants are not required to have insurance.
Great. We had a question about projects that start before receiving grant awards, and there's some follow-up in the Q&A, so I'm just going to read what the recent question was. So understanding that purchases that are made before the start of the grant term would not be reimbursable if awarded funding, but would it be detrimental in any way to the application should we want to get started and showcase our technology in the county or around the Bay Area prior to receiving the grant?
So if they were going, as long as they're not requesting funds for something that they've already done, it's not detrimental. So if you're going to start phase 1 of a project and then you're requesting funds for phase 2 perhaps, then that's fine. We just want to make sure that a grantee who wanted to purchase reusable foodware and did so and then received a grant, you can't use that grant funding for something you've already purchased. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. We had another question about if an applicant is not a business or a nonprofit and planning to work with a fiscal sponsor, do they have to have that fiscal sponsorship in place before applying?
Yes, because we need to know which fiscal sponsor they plan on using. And generally a fiscal sponsor that we would approve has already included that project as one of their projects that they're sponsoring. So happy to talk offline if someone is in the process. It's possible that you become a project of a fiscal sponsor between now and the deadline, but it's easier to kind of explain the nuances. But you need a fiscal sponsor that has you as a project to apply.
Right. I'm gonna do a type check because we have a lot of questions that were answered in the chat and we could go through
Yeah, I
and
see
read all
people
of those.
dropping off too.
But yeah, I think we kind of got the biggest ones that I feel like applied to a lot of folks on the webinar.
Is it possible? So I just want to make sure that who's ever posed that question, if we're able to either just let everyone know that who attended that the FAQs have been updated and we've responded either via this webinar or on the FAQ. I think that would probably, unless there's anything else that's coming in here that you think we should address.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just highlight a couple that are pretty, that would apply for most people, just to reiterate. So organizations cannot apply for more than one grant. They must select one grant category and submit. And if you have questions about which one would best apply for you, you're welcome to schedule an appointment with any of our staff to run through your project proposal. We really encourage that so that we can actually help guide you and recommend which one would be best suited. And let's see. We had another question. This was a typical one, but is if my business or nonprofit is located outside of Alameda County but provides services in Alameda County, can we apply for funding?
Yes, as long as the services are fit into one of the categories that is eligible for funding. So we did cover that. As long as you're diverting or providing services in Alameda County, but you're located outside the county, you're eligible. And again, if you just want to double check, you should just reach out to the grant category. You can even just email and give an example. Just want to make sure you're eligible before you apply.
Great. And are salaries and stipends eligible expenses for in any of these grants?
So as I mentioned, 50% of a salary, if it's a staff person, is eligible. Stipends and consulting fees and consultants fees, even if it's like someone who's working at an agency, those are eligible.
Great. Sorry, trying to go through. There are so many questions. If anyone else on the team thinks that there's one question we should definitely highlight, please.
I think the last, now I'm not sure if I'm Q&A or chat, but someone asked, is the question Q&A from today's webinar shared as an attached document in our follow-up email? I'm not sure how we're doing that, but maybe that's an easy way. Annalisa, have you been able, and Janine, to capture every question and put it in a sheet that we could send out?
Yes, I think we've got most of them, except there's two that came in on the last minute, but we did have a question. It seems like there are some questions about which categories businesses are eligible for.
So businesses in general, we do have that link somewhere, and I don't know where it is on our website, where it's under contact, maybe it's under contact staff, that shows which projects accept which types. So businesses are eligible, I think, for everything, but perhaps not the food donation equipment grants. Is that correct, Casey?
Yes, that's correct.
So all categories, with the exception of the surplus food donation equipment grants, businesses are eligible to apply for. And the community ones, is that eligible as well? Okay,
Yes.
just one grant category. It does not accept businesses.
Okay. I think we were able to get most of these. There are still some that need answering or might require a more complex answer, but we are definitely going to answer those on the FAQ.
Okay, so I think we will either answer everything via FAQ, or if we're able to use a Google Doc with the responses of the questions that came in today, we can use that as a follow-up in an email for all those who registered. I think that probably would be the most comprehensive approach. I just want to make sure we can offer that. And so we have to see what came in. But I do want to thank everyone that attended. I know it's a little bit late, it's after 5, and hopefully folks found this webinar informative and useful. We're really looking forward to some good grant applications, and please reach out to us if you didn't get your question answered and you didn't see it in the response, or you just have some general questions. you want some more information on. I don't know, does any other team members have anything to share? No. Okay.
There's just one quick thing is that once we close this webinar, there's going to be an exit survey also. So please let us know your experience with this webinar and feel free to add any information there. And we are also asking if you are willing to share your contact information. So anybody that says yes to this will also connect you all through a different email with everybody's contact information. So make sure to press yes on that last question.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, team. Thank you, attendees, and looking forward to some great grants.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Bye.